Nostalgia just isn't as good as it used to be. Let me know how you feel in the comments below, but first, my opinion. I'm Tarmack and this is Feature Creep. Most of us remember a time where things were better, our minds clipping the burrs from the derelict skeletons of our childhood games. Those of you too young to understand this will get it later in life. That first video game memory, the camaraderie and friendships playing online or with friends in person, the accomplishment of breaking past that very difficult part of a title. Unfortunately, though we may remember these things fondly, the reality of the situation is that things weren't always better. I wouldn't be surprised if people looked at game releases over the last year and thought that we were in the prime time of video game nostalgia. Titles like Dungeon Keeper Mobile, Roller Coaster Tycoon Mobile, DuckTales Remastered, Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, old Final Fantasy games revamped for iOS and Android, or the annexation of the Steam new releases list by major publisher back catalog. I'll bet that the current 10 to 20-year-old gamer demographic is going to be nostalgic about how much better Minecraft was back in the day, though admittedly it feels like a bottomless pit of logic to think about people being nostalgic about a game with an art style that was clearly already nostalgic in design for the older Gen 3D. This general trend, of course, has been going on long before this last year's plethora of old ideas. The pinnacle of the nostalgia train was clearly Duke Nukem, with such an unending mire of hype that it could have been the best game ever created and still not be good enough in the eyes of the consumer after 13 years of development. Although if Valve doesn't do something, whether to confirm and release or just announce that it isn't happening, Half-Life will soon surpass the Duke. But I find myself asking the question, is it that bad to leave games in the past? I must admit to having a very difficult time thinking of good titles that live up to the legacy that they come from. Diablo 3 is probably the best example, but that one is less nostalgia and more that Blizzard has a ridiculously long development cycle and got caught off guard by the success of World of Warcraft. Yes, the game industry is extremely cyclical in nature and has a hard time taking risks on new intellectual property, but I've never liked that as an excuse. People continue to buy the old tried and true method, but when that's all you're given, really what choice do you have? It's a cheap business move that mirrors the standard monetization attitude that's been rapidly rotting the mobile games market from within. Instead of getting new, exciting, innovative titles, we get a lot of rehashed old ideas ground into dust long after gamers are already sick of them. You'll have even noticed this in the naming of games like Tomb Raider, Thief, SimCity, and so on. They're all named as though they're brand new, never-before-done titles, usually along with the wonderfully superfluous beige word reboot. The notable exception to this, of course, is the Final Fantasy series, which has by this point completely diverted from the successful formula to one whose goals are known only to Square Enix, and as such, the series has almost completely fallen off of my radar. Personally, I pine for new intellectual property. Dishonored, for example, took the stealth style into a new area that it hadn't been in before. It was a bit more action-heavy, a bit more ability and magic-driven, and all with a steampunk style. I have the same hope for Watch Dogs, and though I'm not in the business of pre-ordering, it is definitely on my list of things to get. Yes, they'll get beaten into the ground with sequel after sequel as success is achieved, but in the interim, we get amazing new titles. What I don't need more of are corporate shills watching an aging demographic of gamers with dollar signs in their eyes as they stroke old intellectual properties from 10 to 20 years ago, whether they've just been copyrights in the vault or were picked up at a bankruptcy fire sale. Sometimes it turns out well. LucasArts remastered the first two Monkey Island games and they were fantastic. However, for the most part, gamers everywhere are disappointed as our beloved franchises are dragged through the mud by companies looking to dredge up a few pennies here and there. Where do you stand on rebooted nostalgia trips in the game industry? Do you want more returns to titles of old, or do you prefer to see new intellectual property? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Feature Creep is a regular segment on my channel, so if you like these, hit that subscribe button to keep up on them. That's all I have to say. Tarmack out.